Great. Thank you, David. Hello, everybody. My name's Eric Hackman. I'm the Director of Customer Success here at CubiCasa. I've got a couple of our team members joining us today, Genevieve Klein, Amber Engleby. Genevieve's going to do some of the presentation. We're going to split duties today and talk about the work she's been doing with Fannie Mae regarding our GLA report or GLA product, and then some of the upcoming changes with UAD 3.6. And Amber is with us today. Between Amber, Genevieve, and I, we're going to be focused on the Q&A questions popping in. Please, we encourage you. I would say we expect a lot of questions from appraisers. So between the three of us, we will answer all of those questions in the Q&A box. We'll pause if there are some that are popping up that are relevant to the slides we're on, stop about halfway through and at the end to do any Q&A questions as well. So please, we encourage you to use that inbox. And then again, we're available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And we'll show you which email boxes you could use to reach out to us if, for whatever reason, you want to ask a question after today's presentation. We're easy to get hold of. So I've got a QR code up on the screen in front of us. This is the same QR code that should be on the North Star MLS dashboard. You can scan this to create your CubiCasa credentials. This will take you to a unique branded landing page with us and North Star. And through that sign-up process, we'll actually pre-populate the partnership benefits that we have with North Star. So sign up. It's free to create an account. And I'll bring this QR code up at the end as well. So let's get started. Let's talk a little bit about like CubiCasa and like what we're doing here in the U.S. And our company originated in Finland. And in Finland, the Nordic countries, most of Europe, Australia, New Zealand, floor plans are standard process or standard part of like listing media in the real estate sale process. Obviously, it's a pretty relevant piece of information. It's on every one of your appraisal reports for a reason, but it just hasn't translated to the U.S. and our real estate market. And I think when we started our mission here in the U.S. about 4.5 years ago now, probably, listings had like less than 3% of listings nationally had a floor plan on them. I think some of the reasons why it hasn't been more of a standard part of real estate listing media. They've never been easy for an agent to get or do themselves. I mean, just as well as we do, sketching software doesn't really create an image that you would want to use to market a property. So haven't been easy to get or cheap or fast. So I think that has a lot to do with why they haven't been present on listings in the U.S. But CubiCasa, the idea behind our technology was to make this as simple as possible. Anyone that has one of these in their pocket can do this relatively quickly, inexpensive, and with a high level of accuracy, just based on the technology built into the cameras on your phone. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. But there's been this consumer demand for floor plans, and we know that based on a annual survey that the National Association of Realtors does. So it's an annual buyers and sellers survey, essentially asking the consumer what they find to be the most helpful items on a real estate listing to help them make a buying decision. Number one, no surprise pictures, photos. Number two and number three essentially has kind of flip-flopped back and forth over the past 14 years between general property description, like bedroom, bathroom count, those details, and then a floor plan. So we know there's been a consumer demand for it. If you think about like digital media, at a glance, there isn't a single other piece of listing media that gives you as much information about a property, helps you understand the utility, the flow of the home, is your furniture going to fit, right? Give you those level of details as far as the size and the spaces and, at a glance that, otherwise would take you scrolling through 50 images to really understand. So we know there's value there. It just hasn't translated to the US yet. So, the premise behind our application and what we're trying to do here is just to make this fast, easy, and affordable to do. And our growth over the past 4 years has been absolutely incredible. And they've been through partnership programs like we have with North Star MLS. But we went from less than 3% of listings nationally, and this is actually an outdated chart. I need to update it. We're up to 37% listings nationally that have a CubiCasa floor plan on it. And I truly believe like this is a huge win for like the whole real estate ecosystem. I come from 15 years in the appraisal space, understand the value of what this image, this content, this marketing content can provide. And think about it. Like if you were doing your comparable sale search, if every listing had a floor plan on it to really help you, really feel confident that if that property is what it's stated to be based on the, public records or property data characteristics, is it truly comparable? Like just a super helpful piece of information for everyone, not just the consumers, but everybody involved in the transactions, specifically the appraisers. So let's talk about what CubiCasa is. So we are a mobile scanning technology that is a app-based technology. It's available for both Apple and Android devices. So you can find us in the Google Play Store and the Apple App Store. App is free to download. But essentially, what it does is it leverages the technology in your phones and is measuring the depth and distance between the device and the objects around us as you pass through the home, scanning the space. So I'll show you, give you some visuals of that here in a minute. But the beauty behind this is that anybody can do it with little to no training whatsoever, no special hardware. I actually encourage everybody for their first scan, try it on your own home, right? Walk around, get an understanding for how the app responds. It's very intuitive, gives you real-time feedback if you're doing things that doesn't like or potentially jeopardizing accuracy, like if you're moving too fast or you're pointing up too long. The app gives you warnings, right? So it's easy to correct bad behavior. But what we built this for was for anybody to be able to do it. Like it's truly hard to like break it per se, right? To not have successful results. Literally, you're only walking the interior perimeter of the home from room to room, floor to floor, capturing everything in one continuous scan. You can take as long as you want. You'll realize that you can actually move pretty quickly throughout the house. But those of you that are here in Minnesota, which is likely everybody, the fact that you can avoid having to trudge around the home in the snow or negative 20-degree temps like we've had here for the past week. I'm in Minnesota, by the way. This is Minneapolis behind me. This could make your life a little bit easier, right? And the results are extremely accurate, and we'll show you, what you need to do to have success doing the scan. But I want everybody to know that this is something that anybody can do. Like you do not have to be tech savvy in order to have successful results using the application. It's user friendly and it requires no training. So let's take a look at what the app is and how it works. So this is Tammy, and she is going to walk you through a scan of a home. So I want everybody just to have a little bit of context before we watch the video. The image on the left is simply there to show you how Tammy is approaching scanning a home with a layout like this. You don't see that, obviously. We can't produce the results of a floor plan until we have the scan data from your capture run through our models and our algorithms. But this is there to give you a visual demonstration on how she's approaching scanning the home. So while she's starting at the front door, I want you to know that there is no right or wrong to where you start or stop your scan, just as long as you scan all the interior space. And if there's a detached garage structure, something like, guest unit off the rear of the house, again, everything captured in one continuous scan. But there's no right or wrong way to where you stop or start, or excuse me, where you start or where you finish, just as long as you capture all that space. But for the sake of this video, this is a split level, started at the front door. She's scanning as she's going up the stairs. Again, everything, one continuous scan. We don't stop and start between floors, just everything done in one continuous scan. So here we go. So she's gonna, like I said, scan as she's going up the steps. And you'll see as she enters the room, your goal should be trying to get to all four corners of each room you go into, right? And I understand there's going to be furniture there. A great distance between you and the wall is about, 2.5, 3 feet. And we don't point at the wall, we walk parallel with the wall, right? So if you think about that, we're not pointing directly at it, we're walking with it, and that's capturing all the space. The wall, it's seeing a little bit of the floor, the floorboard meets the floor. It's naturally capturing ceiling height as you're holding the phone in this orientation and portrait, walking the interior perimeter of each room to room, floor to floor in one continuous scan. So this is a great point in this video that I want to show you because everyone asks about closets, right? So Tammy, as she was walking down this hallway, walked past this linen closet here. So small closets like this or like jacket closets, you don't have to go into those. Just as long as you scan it and we can see it like as you walk by, that's good enough. Now spaces like bigger pantries or walk-in closets, deeper spaces like that, which you're going to see here in a second. Those we absolutely want you to go into because we're going to give you the list out the dimensional data of that space. So you'll see Tammy as she enters this bathroom here. She's going to have a walk-in closet that she's going to go into. Excuse me. And you simply, she's walking in, getting into enough of the space where she can see all four corners of the space itself, just like this, and then backing out. Same with small bathrooms. She's going to do the exact same here. You don't need to go all the way in there and do a complete 360. Just as long as we can see the fixture, see the walls, we saw that window. We're going to indicate window placement on every floor plan. Like that is good enough for small spaces like that. But walk-in closets, pantries, things like that, we want you to go into and back out.
Something
But
I'd
again,
like to call out too
yeah,
for
please.
appraisers specifically is when you're used to sketching a house, you're focused on, grabbing those wall dimensions, usually from the exterior, not the interior, but nonetheless. And when you're using CubiCasa, Eric already mentioned walking parallel to the wall, but that's really important to understand is that we're capturing the wall dimensions essentially, but we're really creating a 3D model, which we'll show you more about. But
Yeah,
um, you don't want to look at the wall. We are not focused on the wall. It's being captured off to the side. And that's just one of the most common things we see with appraiser users. It's really easy to do. Just remember, look forward. Don't point the camera at the wall.
yeah, great call out. But really as simple as this, and I'm going to show you kind of like a behind the scenes on why it's important to try to get to all four corners of the room if you can. But we understand like most of the homes that we scan are fully lived in, have furniture, have like entertainment centers or instructions. As long as you pan up a little bit and we can see some of the wall behind it, and then as you walk past it, come back down to a regular height. We say about chest high with a very slight tilt down because again, we like to see a little bit of where the floorboard meets the floor, but not pointed all the way down, right? So just about this angle. Um, and you can see Tammy's doing that here, but it really is as simple as this, right? You're walking room to room, floor to floor, all in one continuous scan.
Also say it's worth noting that Tammy's speed here is partially for the sake of
Yeah.
filming. Most
Yes.
people are not actually going as slow as she is while they're doing the scan. It's much more
Yeah.
casual. You're walking at a fairly normal pace, safe while holding the phone. But, by the time you do a few of these, usually you're 5 minutes or less, unless it's a
Yeah.
particularly large property.
Good call out. And if somebody walks in front of you or the dog's chasing you around, like I said, it is hard to not have a successful result. Like that will not impact the results of the floor plan. So don't worry about it if that happens. It's pretty typical, and it is not going to impact the results of the floor plan. So it is okay. I am going to quickly switch the slide so I can show you the 3D model that Genevieve just talked about here. And we'll show you like what's actually being created behind the scenes. Bear with me. Let's see.
And I do, while he's pulling that up, I do want to just address or not really address. He already talked about clutter, but even like garages and areas like that, we really are used on truly lived in homes, and that means we've seen what a, storage garage looks like. Those aren't issues that you should have as worries going into scanning. We really handle so many of those that we're really, really good about it, unless it's the kind of space where you're not entering, you're not even able to take photos typically, you're not going to have an issue with clutter using CubiCasa.
Good call out. Okay, so give you some context. What we're going to watch here? This is what's happened. This is what is being created based on your scan capture. So for context, upper left-hand corner, just imagine that's what you see. Lower left-hand corner here is what the camera is capturing, and on the right is this information model, this 3D model that's being built like with our technology based on your scan capture. And the whole point of me showing this to you is the importance of like getting into the space and getting all four corners of the room, getting deep into the space. Avoid just going into the middle of the room and spinning around, right? Like try to like walk the parallel with the room itself. And the reason being is that, the more that you go into the home, like I want you to visualize this model being built behind the scenes. Like the more you go into the space, the more you capture, the more full this 3D model becomes. And the more full that model becomes is better results that we will have as far as like overall accuracy and like data to process through our information model. So like Jen said, clutter, no problem. I mean, this house is fully lived in. There's furniture. There's a pile of Legos on the floor. There's clutter. It sees past all of that, right? So just try to visualize this happening and like the importance behind what you're doing, what you're scanning, and what it's creating behind the scenes.
And this also really layers into that aspect of this isn't really like a traditional software where you're connecting a number of lines that happen to coincide and connect into that exterior wall set. This is truly a full 3D model. Everything has to connect. All of the dimension data is being captured during this process. So everything has to align, that model has to line up. That's why we have so much information that we provide on the final floor plan, which we'll show you some of the GLA stuff specifically shortly. But it's why it's not handled the same way that you might typically think when doing a sketch.
Yeah, but it's simple, right? Like, and my goal today is not to like overcomplicate this. I'm simply showing you like what's happening. Like all you're doing is walking the perimeter of each room, floor to floor in one continuous scan. And like this is the result of it, which I mean, look at the quality, like that I got the high fidelity output that comes as a result of that scan capture. Pretty incredible. Like that level of detail, all that interior wall detail, the fixtures, all the window placements, which ways the doors open, swing open, the built-ins, the appliances, the fixtures. We pre-label every room. Our model like looks for specific features within a space, knows like, oh, there's the range and the sink and the fridge. That's the kitchen, right? So we pre-label everything, give you the square footage results, the room dimensional data, and then this is what our GLA output looks like. It distinguishes finished versus non-finished living space. So like this is the porch area you saw them scan on both sides, or screen porch and then the porch, and then everything interior above grade square footage, heated, finished living space in green.
And I should note that we do, as you can tell here, we allow for capture of porches, but also patios and other areas like that. So if you're doing like an FHA loan or something where you need that for any reason, you can scan those and capture it. You just handle it the same exact way that you do the inside. You just walk the perimeter. As long as there's basically a delineating line between like the dirt and the exterior feature, we can capture that too. You just keep doing it as part of your scan, just like you're inside the property.
Awesome. So we're going to talk a little bit about what our GLA product is. So if you are using our application for creation of your floor plan, which again is accepted by Fannie and Freddie in lieu of traditional appraisal sketches, Jen works with them on a monthly basis. We're in a constant feedback loop with them about what they see, what they like, always taking in their feedback for consideration on improving the accuracy. And Amber is actually going to post just an article to like accuracy in general. We there is a little bit of variance in based on which phone you have, on what level of accuracy the outputs or like the average accuracy we see. And just to give you just a little bit of context, and you'll see a chart here later. When we do these accuracy comparisons, we're typically running our output up against an appraisal result. Like we use appraisal as the gold standard. Like you're trained, you're doing this as part of your daily practice. We hold your techniques and your output to a high standard versus any others, and have used that as a comparison to our outputs through most of our testing. So just to give you some perspective and put you on a pedestal here because I'm presenting to a bunch of appraisers, but we do have a little bit of variance based on device type. The new Apple iPhones, the Pro model iPhones, you can tell if it's a Pro, if it's got the three lenses, has LiDAR technology in it, which is extremely accurate way of measuring. It's the same, technology that's in like Tesla self-driving cars, again, measuring the depth and distance between you and the objects around you, but extremely high level of accuracy, 98, 99% accuracy, based on the results of that. But sorry to jump ahead. I'm going to let Jen talk about our GLA product here, in the report that you use, what it includes, and how it aligns to the ANSI standards.
Yeah, so our digital GLA is the appraiser option for the floor plan. It's intended to explicitly cover what you need when you're doing an appraisal. So that means we have things like exterior dimensions, we have area calculations. The rooms come pre-labeled, but you can change the labels. Maybe you're in Florida and you have your Florida rooms. That's something that you can absolutely go in and customize if it is different. We do indicate doorways, staircases, exterior and interior ingress. Those aren't technically required, but we find that we can provide them and it looks nice, but also it can be helpful if maybe maybe we get into the busy season again and you're going to a number of houses before completing the report at home. If you're doing something like that, seeing that can be really helpful in remembering if you have interior access between maybe a basement and a first floor where you're not sure if it counts as like an additional dwelling unit or something like that. We also do automatically distinguish above and below grade using a number of rules in place, though you are able to change it if for any reason you wanted to. All of this also follows ANSI. So you'll notice that the sketch on the screen is separated by green and red. We actually have some other colors such as yellow. And what these are doing is they're representing what kind of area this is. So green is what we'd consider the GLA. That is area, finished living area that aligns to the ANSI Z765 standard specifically. Then we have red, which is your non-living area, garages, patios, anything like that. Then we also have yellow, which is for the basements that are finished. So if you had a partially finished basement, you might see a little bit of red, a little bit of yellow, with the area separated out for those two spaces. So you could accurately say, 500 square feet of the basement's finished and 400 isn't. We also have like an indigo color for ADUs in case that's present. And we'll touch on this shortly, but we have an up and coming color for non-standard finished area. And then
Jen,
there,
oh,
go ahead.
sorry. No, go ahead. Yeah, are you done with the colors? Sorry.
Yeah, I'm done with the colors, so you feel free.
Nice. We get a question pop up that's relevant to right now, and it's asking how we distinguish 3 seasons to like 4 season porches. Do you want to talk
Mm.
about like what we're looking for in a finish?
Yeah, so that's a wonderful question. When we are looking at something like a sunroom versus enclosed porch, so 3 season versus 4 season type scenario, we do look at things like finish, and we've actually seen some rules at one point that Fannie Mae was playing with, but there's no hard rule set for what's technically finished out there. But we follow what's typical in the industry. So we look for things like, do we see exterior wall? Do we see lighting? Is the floor and the walls fully finished? So we're looking at those things. Heating can be a little tricky because not all areas actually require heating for it to be finished living area, and it's not part of ANSI. Um, And we can't necessarily always tell very well from the scan if an area is heated. So typically, the way we handle it is if we see that a floor or a space looks like it would be heated, we're going to mark it as such. And then you have the ability in our editor to go in and unmark it if that's not the case, or mark it if for some reason it is. Something very interesting is that with UAD 3.6, an unheated space in an area that requires it is going to be not counted towards even non-standard finished living area. So heating is pretty important for that. But there's some amount that we look for that. Typically, they're going to align. You don't see too many plate spaces that are fully finished and unheated where it's expected. But there is a little bit of presumption there. Same with permitting. We have an option to mark an area as unpermitted, but we presume that all spaces are permitted because we're not going to have access to that information.
Sweet. So please fire away any other questions related to that, but we're going to show you what changes were made to the for based on UAD 3.6. But we talked a little bit about accuracy, and I mentioned before that we use appraisers as kind of our gold standard to our testing. So when we were looking at the CubiCasa technology and bringing that into the U.S. market, specifically around our GLA floor plan, the testing that was done essentially was a number of homes, 250 plus homes, where we had two different appraisers measure to their typical measure or standard measuring techniques, and then two different untrained homeowners using the CubiCasa application. And Jen, do you want to just set the table there and talk about a little bit about what we saw as far as the differences?
Yeah, so when we wanted to add the GLA option to CubiCasa, it was really important that we know it's reliable and consistent because no one can really use the GLA if it's not producing a reliable output, right? Especially for everyone here who's working as an appraiser, you can't use something you can't trust. It doesn't matter how pretty it looks, it doesn't matter anything if you can't use it and trust what you're getting out of it. So what we did was we took those two untrained homeowners and they scanned a property and we compared those outputs versus two different appraisers hand measuring the same property with some considerations, removing different um, sorts of appraisals that might have different models where value might come in different or GLA might be counted a little differently, or if there was something that caused like a reappraisal because of like a material deficiency. So we tried to account for all of those kinds of situations and then take a look at how we held up. So what you see here is that on average, if you have two appraisers who measure the same property, same kind of loan, no material deficiency in one of the reports, and within, I think we were looking at a 6 month span, we see an average variance of 3.9%. So that's kind of a nice baseline to operate off of, and it's pretty aligned with what most of the industry quietly believes, which is about a 5% variance is typically considered acceptable between floor plans because we know that no one measures exactly the same. It's really easy to have slight differences in what comes out. So that's what this was looking at. And you can also see that about 4.9% of the properties we looked at had a significant variance, which was either 10 or 15%. So that's saying this time it was a noticeable GLA difference, right? Something more than a couple hundred square feet, most likely. And then what we did was we did the same thing. Our variance was 4% with 0% of significant variances. So we're appraisers were able to get slightly closer than we were, but with more significant GLA variances. This all goes to show that if you're using CubiCasa, you shouldn't be expecting anything weird. For example, I don't see variances greater than like 10%, usually even over 5, where there's not a very clear reason why, like an addition
Right.
done to the home. So that's the level of accuracy you should be able to expect. And we really encourage appraisers to do this alongside their own sketching, especially on like your own home for your first one, because you know what it looks like, you know the dimensions, you can measure it yourself, and then you can compare that output you get, and you can have that confidence to know that those measurements and dimensions and the total area and everything is correct.
Yeah, and I would say like if you any of you that are serious about like baking this into your workflow and your business, uh, if you're serious about it and you want to like do a scan and then you have questions about like, well, how what happened here, or like if you have, if, let's say you have one of these significant variances, we have the ability to do like I showed you that 3D model before. We can see your walkthrough of the home and explain a lot of things too. So if you're seeing something funky, like we can typically walk you through like what that is or explain like how the technology looked at it. Like Jen said, I mean, it's pretty rare that we'd ever see like 10% variance without there being a story to tell. But um, yeah, if anyone's serious about doing this, we are happy to spend time with you. We'll walk you through your scan, give you some pointers based on the technique we saw, or explain any questions that you have. I do want to call out a question that popped up from Jody. How long does it take for the floor plans to come back? So our SLAs, our on time percentages every month are like bulletproof. It's like 99.989, 99.99%. And that's not an exaggeration. Like you're not going to have to reach out to us for late files. It just is not a thing. Our production team is amazing. Um, every one of our reports is also looked at by a human. That's why we even have a turn time. Nothing is a fully automated process. Like we work with the GSEs. We understand these are being used for lending decisions. Everything is QA'd by a human. So we do have a turnaround time as a result of that. Everything's guaranteed within 24 hours. Our average turn time is anywhere between 12 and 17 hours, typically depending on what part of the season we're in. We do have rush options. I know you will deal with rush appraisal requests at times. We do have rush options, so it's a 6 hour rush. It's an additional charge, no surprise there. Um, but it's that usually comes back in about 2 to 3 hours on average. So pretty quick results, but some people believe that this might be like a fully automated process, and that is not true. Everything is looked at by a human, and it's all for quality assurance reasons, and that's why we feel so confident in our tool and our product being used with the GSEs. And we are in constant dialogue every month, looking at examples of reports that they see or appraisals that are using our technology that they see, and in a constant feedback loop and always dialing in the accuracy. Cool. So talking about making your lives easier, like this doesn't just have to be like a square home, right? Like this can make your life easier if you're dealing with large or complex property layouts, really simplifying and expediting the inspection process. If any of you have ever measured curved walls, know how much of a nightmare that can be, and honestly, to do with any like high level of confidence or accuracy, it's not easy. I mean, this house took maybe 8 minutes to scan, even with the casita off the back. And I mean, look at the quality of the output on this, right? Sketching software just isn't capable of doing this. And the fact that you don't even have to plug in, your calculations, this really can just make your workflow faster, easier. I'll show you another example of a property my buddy appraised in New Mexico, and he was a huge skeptic of this application. And the day he pulled into the driveway of this property was the day he downloaded the app and tried it himself. He still hand measured it, but which his hand measuring took him about an hour. It was almost 11,000 square feet. The walkthrough with our app took about 15 minutes, and he was probably a little apprehensive, just conservative in what he was doing his first scan, but um, there was less than 200 square feet difference between our results and his measurements. So, I mean, think about that. For a 11,000 square foot house, that's expected from every one of us measuring it differently, right? And it is within an acceptable means of variance between two different sources. So the quality of the output, I mean, I know underwriters will love seeing this. Your customers appreciate having something to look at that gives the level of detail that this does. But the fact that you don't have to you just kind of set it and forget it. I don't forget what like infomercial that was from, but you scan it, you capture it, you're going to get it back with like a high fidelity output like this that you're essentially attaching into your appraisal report. You're adding it as like an addendum. It's a PDF output on the file, the GLA report, and it has everything that is required from the GSEs to use in lieu of your traditional sketching. So this really can make you more efficient and speed up your process. And for those of you like me who live here in the elements, not have to deal with that. I'm surprised the question hasn't come up because it typically always does. Is like, how do we align to ANSI if we're measuring from the interior? And that is we account for wall thickness in our calculations. So that is how we align to the ANSI standard. Um, Again, Fannie and Freddie know how we capture our floor plans, and they have acknowledged that technologies like ours are acceptable. So if anyone's questioning because our scan capture process is from the interior that doesn't align to ANSI, like we do account for it. It's just, and we say align because it's not exactly as ANSI writes, but it is accomplishing the exact same thing by adding the full footprint with the wall thickness calculations.
I think this is also a good opportunity to call out that we are not subscription based, we're use based.
Yes.
So if you're someone who, you've been measuring homes forever, you don't need a tool to measure a 40 by 20 or something. That's totally fine. A lot of appraisers do use this for like luxury homes, complex cases, the ones that are going to take much longer to measure no matter how skilled you are. So you have a lot of flexibility using CubiCasa in regards to whether or not you want to. We have some people absolutely who do use it for every floor plan, but we have some appraisers who like to use it as a as needed tool for complex properties.
Great call out. Yes, this is an as you need it. We understand the volatility of volumes, and we don't believe in putting anyone into a subscription model for something that they might not use, um, any given month or enough of, right? So it's as you need it per property, and the pricing model is very affordable. It's it's $15 per property, up to 5,000 square feet, and couldn't be easier to use. So you get a free upgraded version just for creating an account with us, right? So you get a GLA floor plan just for downloading the account and creating it. Try it on your own home, right? Um, you've got a free option to do that, and we'd love to hear your feedback after trying it. But I think you'll see that if you bake this into your process, that it can become very, very easy for you to simplify and speed up the inspection process. The average time on site saves that we had our appraiser panel, we had 120 appraiser national across the country nationally use this, and after about 90 days of fully incorporating this into their workflow, I think their average time on site save is like they were spending about half, a little less than half the amount of time that they typically were at the property after they had baked in CubiCasa into their workflow. So can really speed you up to get you in and out of the property quickly. And what we also want to help you do is not have to think about everything UAD 3.6. So the upcoming changes, we've taken into account. Jen's been working with Fannie for months since they started um, really even thinking about doing this. Asked us if we would align to some of the changes and the color schematics of what the new UAD requirements look like, and then this new non I messed this up non-standard finished area, this new space. But Jen will talk to you more about what she was doing with them. And then I'm going to have David post a link to like a legend of what these new, color schematic, the new color scheme looks like, and based on these UAD 3.6 changes.
So obviously we can't solve all of UAD 3.6 because most of it doesn't relate to the floor plan. But so far as it does touch the floor plan, our goal was to make it as easy to use and take as much of the thought out of like what counts as this new non-standard finished area. Also just add some general quality of life improvements while we're at it. So what we did was before UAD 3.6 even started going through optional, like, opt-in, whatever it's called, use or was planned to, we started making changes aligned to the FAQ that Fannie Mae had released regarding like their color scheme and then what the kind of color or what the area breakouts looked like. So, what this includes, most of it's very similar. So, GLA, which is still ANSI aligned finished living area, is the same. That's not calculated any differently. It just looks a little nicer on the floor plan. But what the UAD 3.6 standard, or not standard, requirements have is a better breakdown for non-living areas of what qualifies. So some of the things actually align with actions we already had. So we've historically separated out finished basement area, and that's not something that was necessarily required or expected clearly in regards to how it's qualified. It didn't fall under a category. Now they have it separated out in the same color we use on their FAQ. So we still have all of those original parts, but now for non-living area, we have the addition of this non-standard finished living area, which will be in a new color, which is like a pink. Um, and we've been working with them a lot on determining and understanding what actually qualifies as non-standard finished living area. And there's been some changes regarding what things shouldn't be counted in any kind of area. So, for example, if you were to grab a GLA floor plan today and not opt into our beta to use this, you would see fireplaces come out in red if they protrude beyond the exterior wall. We add them, but we don't include them in the living area. With UAD 3.6, fireplaces shouldn't be counted in any area, not total structure, not non-finished, nothing. So we're still going to present them, but we're going to have them in white, and they're not going to be counted towards any areas because that's the direction that Fannie Mae has explicitly offered. And we've worked really hard to make sure we are clear on what those rules are. So you won't have to try to figure all of that out. And I think that might be a nice little save amongst all of the chaos that you're going to be experiencing. But we're also just adding in some nice changes. So you can see the colors just look nicer, the way they fall behind like features like the stairs or fixed furniture. If you're getting that, it looks a little better. We're going to be switching to decimals is another thing. So instead of 13 feet 2 inches, or let me do 13 feet 6 inches, it would be 13.5 feet. Um, some stuff like that that's quality of life or just general improvements. But hopefully you'll like it and find it useful. We do have this opt-in available right now in beta, and in the future it will become the standard GLA version.
Awesome. Real quick, Jen, there's been a couple of questions that have popped up about what about covered front porches and can you add like snow covered patios? So um, we need to be able to see like the perimeter of what you're scanning in order to be able to draw it in, right? So like if there's like a banister or railing around the deck, excuse me, if we can see that and you walk it, like physically walk it, so imagine like walking around the edge of that the whole way. We can do it that way. We got to be able to see a little bit of something, and you need to walk that perimeter as if you were like next to the edge of it. So we can do it if you accomplish it, or if you walk that perimeter that way. If you're just scanning it from afar and it's snow covered, it's probably not going to work if we can't see like a banister or railing. So we need to be able to see that space in order to draw it in.
I saw
Logan S.
someone
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah, sorry. I was just going to add that I saw someone mention like potentially moving a little snow off of the edges. It's possible that could work. I might talk to our dev team and see if they have suggestions for snow specifically because it did seem like quite a few questions came in. Um, we can typically, like, if we can find a way to get an idea, we can usually work with something. So that might work. Um, but it would definitely be harder just because of the coverage if it's truly fully layered under.
There was a question about 5,000 square feet totals, and I'm assuming that's in relation to the oversized charge, or like we say up to 5,000 square feet. So We don't just take the GLA number. It's like whatever you scan and want us to draw into the floor plan is the would go towards the total of up to that 5,000 square feet. So if you scan it and want us to draw it, whether it's considered GLA or not, that would add towards that 5,000 total square feet. Jody said, when we really can't see it, I add to my sketch snow covered patio just for words. Okay, but will I be able to add those words? So
Yes.
you have, go ahead, Jen. Yep, go for it.
Yeah. We have an editor tool, so if you have something that's like atypical from what we offer, you can go in and make changes, including renaming a room. So, for example, we kind of have on like our side a we separate out the name and like what type of room it is. So let's say you have like a bathroom, but you wanted for some reason to name it like Jack's favorite bathroom. You could do that and still have it count in like the data side as a bathroom correctly. If you were using something that counted that, we do have some, but most appraisers don't need those. But you can totally go in and you can customize things like the labels. We have things like that for you so that you have that freedom.
There is a functionality of our product that we did not touch on, but one of the other things that we thought about in like creating a faster workflow for appraisers was, we heard some complaints about having to walk through the property twice. Like we have to do the scan once and then go back and take the pictures separately. So we actually created the ability to take, like, we call it our snapshots functionality, but you have the ability to take still image capture while you're scanning. And I'm going to bring up an example of like what the snapshot functionality is. So, and I will actually have this posted, David. I'll share one more with you in our chat, but you've got the ability to take still image capture, and there's a little phone icon when you're scanning, and all you need to do is click on it, and you can take still image capture as you're doing a walkthrough. So if you use your phone for capturing your images for your appraisal report, you can do that while you scan. So hopefully, thus eliminating that second pass through of the home. We just ask that you'll have the ability to do it as you scan. You need to at the very end of your scan, you'll have the option to download those pictures that you took to your camera roll. Doesn't cost you anything. If you don't do it though, if you don't hit download at the end of the scan, it's not going to automatically save on your phone. So just remember, if you want to do that, if you're going to use your phone and scan and do image capture at the same time, you have the ability to do that. It's just using the little camera icon on the screen while you're scanning, and then you just download it to your camera roll.
Something we didn't touch on either that's just a little note is we do ask for property type when you complete a scan. So just as a note, if you're doing like a condo or a townhouse and you're worried about the walls being accounted for separately, that selection determines how your walls get counted. So just be aware of that, but we absolutely support things like condos and you can do those. We are intended for residential, so we don't explicitly do anything special for commercial or multifamily residences, but we do have plenty of people who use us for those. Saw earlier we had a very pleasant call out of someone thanking us for their experience with it for commercial. So, you're not limited to it, but just note that those are what we are built for.
Good questions. There was one Jennifer asked about, if we get the sketch back and there needs to be a correction, how long is the turn time? We do have a quick edit tool that you can use yourself in the dashboard, in your count dashboard. Um, I always encourage everyone to try it because you're going to be way faster than we will. The longest we would ever take is 8 hours. It's typically way faster than that. I would say the average is probably just maybe a couple of hours, but it wouldn't be longer than 8.
And you only need to use the request feature typically for like major changes. So, like I saw someone ask about what if I didn't get a patio, could I add it? If we had like, you could give us dimensions and it's a simple patio, we could totally add something like that for you.
Mm-hmm.
But because we have to draw it in, it takes a little bit more time and we don't have that in our quick edit feature.
Jeff's asking about portrait mode photos. Unfortunately, we do not offer the picture taking in landscape. Excuse me, I forgot the word there for a second. So sorry, Jeff. I hopefully I think we did ask Fanny. Like, I don't think there is. It's, I know it looks funny, based on how the appraisal software is designed, but I don't think it's like not allowed. I understand like the orientation may not look the best in the appraisal report, but um, totally understand that. And good question. I'm surprised that more people don't ask about that, but yeah, good question.
Yeah, it's something we'd love to add at some point if we can make it
Hmm.
work. Right now, it's just difficult technically. Um, but yeah, I mean, in general, we love to try to make changes to make the experience with appraisal softwares a little bit easier. Um, but we have some limitations there because we don't work with any of them directly. That's not something that we expect them to really be interested in based on our conversations. Most of them aren't really focusing on, ease of use with modern like technologies like CubiCasa.
There was a question that just popped up about submitting the scans, and I'm going to bring up a deck and show you what that process looks like. So it's pretty easy. You will just, at the end of this, is going to be like 3 steps to doing the scan. So you'll see what that looks like here. So when you fire up the app, you're going to pick property type. There's a reason for this. You guys know, like, especially when it comes to um, calculating the like what we're adding for the wall thickness for the style of home. So like single family apartment buildings or like attached townhomes, things like that. There's a reason we ask that, and it's for the wall thickness calculations. So it'll ask you what type of property it is. Then it's going to pre load an address based on where you are located, right? So it's going to pop up like the geolocation. It's pretty accurate. I mean, it's the same. It's just the same as if you're using like Google Maps, right? It's going to know where you are. You can either validate that or type it in yourself. And then at that point, you'll start the scanning process. These are just some tips that pop up each time. Start the scanning process. You're going to walk the interior perimeter, the exterior spaces that you need. And then when it's time to submit the scan to us, you will get a couple of questions popping up. And that's going to be like when you select which product do you want, right? Um, and you will obviously go through these steps. You're going to select the GLA report there. And then if you have any additional info, you saw that pop up. Sorry, this goes a little quick here. Um, right here, pick your GLA report, and then you submit. Sorry, I missed it. So you have the option to give us additional information. You can share if you want to, but you will get that like progression bar of when you send it to us. It's going to go through the submit and show you that it's gotten to 100% and give you a little like, hey, you've sent it to us and now you're waiting for your floor plan. So at that point, 24 hours at the most, likely 12 to 17, you'll get an email saying your report's ready. And then you just download the file. So the GLA report is a PDF format. It's just downloaded into a zip file, and then you add it as an attachment to your appraisal software. We would love to integrate with like Total or any of the appraisal softwares at some point. Fortunately, we're just an attachment, so it's just as if you were adding any other attachment, like you are already doing with your appraisal report. So, pretty simple. And but yeah, I'm sure at some point in time we will work with softwares and hopefully just make this like a fully integrated um, part of the process. But it's so simple as it is, right? Just a PDF attachment.
Just as a note too, because we just showed this video, we do have a YouTube channel and we have a help center. Both the help centers on our website, YouTube, you can look up CubiCasa. We have a lot of content out there around like how we handle different things. If you want to order GLA, anything you might have questions about. And then we also have our help team you can reach out to 24/7 if you have other questions.
Awesome. David, we're right up at time. How about that?